Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Moonrise Human Design Podcast. My name is Nadia Last. I'm sitting across from Samantha Fotenhauer. We have such a cool episode today. Seriously, such a cool synchronistic way that this guest came to be in our orbits. Sam, who is Scott Conant, the person we're interviewing today?
Scott Conant, our truly incredible guest, possibly the most vibrant person I've ever met in my entire life.
Whoa.
He's a iconic celebrity chef and a Food Network personality. So he's a two-time James Beard award-winning chef. I'm a huge fan of the James Beard Awards. I always follow them every year, so it's very exciting for me to have gotten to connect with the James Beard award-winning chef because they just operate at such a high level. It's such an esteemed award for culinary arts. He's a cookbook author. He has many books, and he's a TV personality. He's been a judge on the Food Network show Chopped for 16 years.
16 years is a long time. It's very cool. And we actually learned about Scott, or not learned about, but he came into our orbits because he actually reached out to Moonrise and he sent us a DM on Instagram. He listens to the Moonrise podcast and is very interested in human design, both for himself, but also for his family. He is not only all of those incredible accolades in the food space, but he's a devoted husband and father to two daughters, which he talks about a lot in this podcast episode. And it just broke Sam and I, both of us, our hearts were so expanded as he talked about parenthood and his journey into spirituality. I think that this conversation is really powerful for a lot of reasons, but for me, the most striking thing is that this is the first time that Scott is talking publicly about his spirituality path and how he started to find tools like human design and astrology and energy work starting in 2005. So he talks a little bit about that here in this podcast for the first time ever, which is really cool.
It's such an honor for us to get to hold space for somebody to share their story. And then it's also such an honor to have somebody who's so successful in their field. I have a lot of respect for anyone who's really successful in their field to have reached out to us and want to connect with us. But it also is, he speaks with so much passion. I think the thing that was so touching for me is I could feel viscerally like his passion for his work and for his family, like his passion for fatherhood and his passion for his work, and how much love and aliveness and inspiration. And it kind of gave me a little like kick in the ass of like, stay focused, Samantha. Like, and he embodies that really well. We talk about some of the aspects of his chart. He's a manifesting generator that he exhibits and embodies so naturally. And so this is going to be an inspiring episode for anyone. There's just a lot of like really powerful wisdom in there. It's a very felt episode. I think he's a very charismatic speaker, and it's inspiring the way that it makes you feel things. And then it's also just very cool to hear somebody speak about a long devoted career and what they get out of that. And then there's also a lot of like human design insight, so it's educational in that way too.
Totally. I am still buzzing. We recorded this conversation with him yesterday, and over these last 24 hours, Sam, I felt buzzed up. Like this was an energetic transmission. I feel inspired. I feel like I have a greater sense of devotion and desire to be devoted to the lanes of life that are emerging for me. So I'm excited to share this and I'm excited to re-listen to this on my own time as well.
We'd love to hear from you. If you are moved or touched by this episode, share it with us. Let us know. Send us a note on Moonrise Community Instagram. Send us an email. Find us and let us know, and we'll pass that along too. We'd love to share it with
Absolutely.
Scott.
Absolutely. So without further ado, here's our conversation with. Welcome, everyone, back to the Moonrise Human Design Podcast. I'm very giddy with excitement right now, and it might be because I'm picking up on the energy of our special guest today and how much energy is in your chart. We're sitting across Sam Fotenhauer and I are sitting across from Scott Conant, who is a very well-known food entrepreneur and someone who's worked in the food space for many years, both in the kitchen and the restaurant space, and then making your way into television. You were one of the judges of Chopped for many years, and I actually
Yeah,
don't know if you're still involved with it right now.
I am 16 years later. Yeah, I'm really
Wow.
dating. I'm really dating myself. But yeah, 16 years in.
That's
What a
Yeah,
so
run.
rad.
And
it's
what's
amazing.
super cool is that you found your way into human design and sent us a DM on Instagram that you have been listening to the podcast. And we were so stoked and so excited that you found your way in. So maybe we can start there today, Scott.
Sure.
How did you find human design?
You know, a friend of mine was doing, a woman who I've gotten astrology readings, both Eastern and Western astrology readings from. She started doing it and she called me one day and she said, you know, I'm doing this new thing. It's called human design. Would you be interested in having a reading? And so I'm always curious, and wherever I can get inspiration or a little bit of insight, I'm totally up for it. So I sat with her, and 3 hours later, I felt like we hadn't even scratched the surface. And she'll still once in a while DM me and say, or text me and say, you know, I was just reading this thing and I checked your chart, and you know, is this true for you, or is that true for you, or whatever the case is. And it just blows my mind. So as I was talking about, as I was, you know, afterwards, I was really thinking about human design overall, and I was searching up some various podcasts, and I came across yours, and I was just so intrigued by it. And I just love your banter, and I love your connectivity and the way you connect with one another, and you speak about it, you know, just with such fluidity and fluency. And I just really loved it. And I like maybe six or seven episodes in, I DM'd you, and I was just like, you know, respect, good stuff. Thank you.
Respect.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at your chart right now, Scott. And for those that are listening, our fellow human design nerds, Scott is born under the cross of the sleeping phoenix, which we'll get into. Your conscious sun is gate 55. You're a 1-3 manifesting generator, and you're a sacral manifesting generator. And so that might sound like gobbledygook for those listening. That's okay. We'll get into it. But Scott, I'd love to ask you, what's the first part of human design that you got, you know, in this reading where you're like, whoa, I find myself in that. That feels like
I
me.
think I think it's the combination of all the modalities coming together. You know, the I Ching, the you know, astrology in general, and you know, the list goes on and on. There's so many interesting aspects to it. Um, you know, and that really, you know, that was intriguing to me initially, but the deeper we got into it, I don't think I've ever identified anything, any modality that's understood me the way human design has, if that makes sense. It's just every time I hear something like, oh my God, that's totally me. That really is, it's special to experience that.
Yeah. Sam, I want to bring you into this conversation, especially as a fellow MG with a lot of similarities in your chart.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, how I feel the same way, that it understands me. And I was telling Scott before this, Scott and I share half of our life path. And so for everybody here, we both share gate 55, the gate of spirit, and gate 59, the gate of intimacy, which Nadia and I actually have a whole podcast going into those two gates. And this energy is really about vibrancy and connection. It's about feeling the fullness of being alive and opening to the fullness of being alive, opening your heart to it, opening your emotions to it, and that being the thing that moves you forward in your life. And everything that we do, it almost doesn't matter. Like it does matter, but like it doesn't matter for each specific person. It's about finding the things that make you feel full and
Yeah.
available. And I'm
Yeah.
curious, Scott, what in your life helps you access that fullness?
You know, I think there's something about living a creative life for me. I was 15 years old when I started cooking. I got a job as a dishwasher at a family friend's restaurant. And I remember walking into that kitchen for the first time I was ever in a commercial kitchen. And I remember going home and saying to my mother, you know, I don't know where this is going to take me, but I know that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And it was, I mean, that's such an incredible gift to find at such a young age. Simultaneously, I was going to a technical school. I grew up in Connecticut, a town right next to Waterbury, Connecticut, and I was going to a vocational school, a technical school, and you get to choose. If you're not familiar with what that is, you get to choose your trade, so to speak. So, I wanted to be a plumber, and because they had told me that I could make $35,000 a year as a plumber, and every other trade had said that it would be 30,000 a year. And so I was like, well, that extra $5,000, that's the life for me. So I applied to be a plumber. Too many people had chosen that because I guess they all fell for the same shtick. And I as a second choice, I chose culinary arts, and I got into that class as I was. I mean, you talk about serendipity, right? Like it was just a really special moment that I was started cooking. And the way it works is we would cook for 3 weeks, and then we would go to academic classes for 3 weeks. So, I always say I get 50% of a high school graduation, education, but I was able to um, really pursue my passion, and what I did, what I've continued to do with it since I was 15. I mean, it's been 38 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a long time to live this life. So that being said, to answer your question, I think that, just being open to that kind of creativity and pursuing something that I'm really passionate about still to this day, there's no greater excitement than cooking something. And I think that's, I realize with my kids, that's how I show love. Just sit down, let me cook for you. Let me feed you. Let me give you something that's so incredibly personal to me. It resonates with me on such an inner, like my inner sanctum is fulfilled that way, that I just, I have to give it to someone. I have to share that.
It makes me here we go, but it makes me cry. It makes my eyes fill with tears because I can feel the truth when you say that. And
Yeah.
you're using words to describe it, but I feel this feeling of how intimate
Yeah.
it actually is.
There's no words that can really capture what it means to me. And I think that's a challenge for people when I'm trying to communicate, a concept that we're doing, or a restaurant opening, or a menu change, or whatever it is, because it just, everything, this is so incredibly personal to me. Everything that I do, the concepts that I come with, there's a reason why I choose every plate, why the tabletop is what it is, the way, the food products that we're choosing, creating, or um, trying to manipulate or put together. I mean, these are things that are it's soul enriching for me, truly, truly. I get a lot of grief on Chopped because people say that I'm the stern one. I'm the guy who gets a little sassy sometimes, if you will. Uh, and I don't disagree with that, because uh, I'm passionate about this, because we're supposed to be passionate about the things that we choose in life. None of this is a layup, right? Like, life is meant to be difficult, but it doesn't have to hurt us, right? Like, it, we should pursue things with our utmost care, regardless of what the outcome is, right? We love what we do, and we're passionate about it, and we pursue it wholeheartedly, 100%. And if you're not going to do it that way, you shouldn't do it. You just shouldn't be doing these things.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy for me to say, people will say it's easy for me to say, because I've identified some level of success within what I do. And I don't think that that's wrong, but I wasn't always successful at this, right? I struggled just like everybody else on
You
my
were the
way up.
plumber looking for the extra $5,000.
And I still wear my pants like that sometimes, just as a reminder.
I'm a little bit struck by this for a lot of reasons. The first is that it is such a everything you just shared, all that I keep seeing in my mind's eye is like, this is embodied spirituality. Like, this is what it really means to be awake to life, which is how I think of spirituality. Like, there can be, of course, like a mystical piece, or an openness to some creator, but at its core level, it's about feeling deeply a gratitude for life and a deep love for something that's much bigger than yourself or anything like tangible it can give you. It's much bigger than any success or James Beard Award or anything that you get to put on your wall, which are significant. But it fills you so much more that you can't separate from it. It becomes a part of you, and it moves you through life. And by the way, for anyone listening who's deep in human design, this is very strong gate 55 energy. This is very strong defined heart and very strong manifesting generator energy, because it's this belief, sacral beings, you are here to find things you are deeply passionate about, and then effort for them, to work really hard consistently. However, that hard work is in service of something that you love so much that it what it gives you back is so nourishing.
It's everything in my life. I wouldn't have all the things that I have. And it's not about material, just I'm a believer that whenever anything negative happens, it's for a positive reason. I think, we need to play things out. I had a situation, I'll give you an example. A really good friend of mine who's a very well-known chef. We have a show coming out, and it was moved. The show was meant to be showing this quarter, and it was moved to first quarter of next year. And I'm the host of the show, and he's one of the judges, and he's one of my closest friends. And he called me really upset, like, why did they move it? What's going on? And he really carried on and was really upset for 20 minutes on a phone call. And he said, what's your perspective on this? What do you think? And I said, I don't think we know yet. I believe, in my heart of hearts, I truly believe that this was moved for a reason, and we don't know why yet. So we will see as time goes on why this was moved. Simple as that. I'm not going to question it. I'm not going to second guess myself. I'm not going to think that there's an agenda that everybody else has. I'm not a victim. He's not a victim. None of us are victims. The chef that won this thing won a lot of money. So, they have to wait for that money to come in. That's maybe the victim. But at the end of the day, I'm a true believer that if anything happens that's seemingly negative, it's for a positive reason. I believe that. I truly believe that. And that's a hard place to get into mentally, I think.
And a hard place perhaps for somebody living in a very material reality to open themselves up to. And I really respect that was your response to this person. I'm curious, Scott, if we could just back up for a second and maybe ask you about spirituality and how you've experienced that in your life, how you found your way into it.
I'll give you some personal stories. I was years ago, this was a very long time ago, I was with a woman that I shouldn't have been with. And I was single, but it was just, one of those things. And it was really late, and we were hanging out at a place with a bunch of people, and we went our separate ways because we weren't supposed to really know that we were kind of fooling around and stuff like that. We've all been there, particularly in the restaurant world. That seems to be, a thing. And as I was walking to meet her, I got hit by a car, and it wasn't bad. I bruised a couple ribs. It wasn't terrible, but I kind of looked at myself and I said, I don't get hit by cars. That doesn't happen to me. That happens to other people. So I was talking to a friend of mine, and she said, I started seeing this woman she does acupuncture, but she's also a really interesting spiritual healer. And I said, well, I'll talk to anybody. Clearly I'm not on the right path if I'm getting hit by a car at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? In a place where I'm not supposed to be anyway. So let me just kind of see this person. And this woman changed my life. She changed my life. She allowed me to work a lot with my inner child. She exposed me to things that I just never had ever questioned. I grew up Catholic. And Catholicism and all that stuff just wasn't necessarily working for me anymore. Although I believe in the spiritual aspects of it, not in the religious aspects of it. And so we worked a lot on these things and trying to change what's expected and work with what is. And I think what it allowed me to do, and it took me a very long time to be able to feel comfortable talking to anybody about me being on a spiritual path. This is the first time I'm doing it in a public setting. But that was what year was that? 2005. So almost 20 years ago. Yeah. Really, the more dates I throw out there, the more I realize how old I'm getting. I
I
really,
and I really think this is a side note, but important that it's wisdom. Like I hear that you've been walking this path since 2005,
yeah,
and I have a lot of respect, like the
yeah.
same level of
Thank
respect
you.
that you just gave Sam and I. And I'm curious, you've been on this path since 2005. You've been open to it. What allowed you to be open to exploring these things that you might not have been raised with?
I'm not sure, but when I looked at my human design, I have a totally open, whatever this is called in my head.
Open head, yeah.
I have an open head, so I'm here for it, And I also I love storytelling and listening to people's triumphs and tribulations and the difficulty of life, and I really have leaned into Buddhism a lot in different aspects of my life, and I believe that the path of the Buddha, that suffering is part of life, and I think we need to identify that. I don't believe that we need to succumb to it. I think that if we identify that suffering is a part of life, we're better prepared for the path ahead. Simple as that. And I also believe, as I said before, that any negativity is for a positive outcome if your head is in the right place for it.
So go ahead, Sam.
So, so you've been in the restaurant space for much longer than your spiritual path and in the food
Yes,
space. And so, how did this opening or awakening, or sometimes I hear people call it a remembrance, which I really love too, but how did
I
this
like that.
kind of
Yeah.
like reconnection shift the way that you related to your professional work or also just any part of your life?
Um, you know, it's hard sometimes, and I need to remind myself of things because because it's so personal to me. I get incredibly frustrated with people who aren't dedicating themselves the way that I dedicated myself once. So I need to remind myself that we're all on a different path, right? And I also one day came to this realization that I didn't even realize was a theory, but I believe in reincarnation. I believe that um, we walk various paths in our soul's journey, um, and I also came to this realization one day that all the challenges that we have in front of us could be from versions of ourselves in a different incarnation and timeline. And so I think that some people would think that's absolutely ridiculous. So I've never really said it out loud to anyone other than very few people. But I'm saying it to you because it's helped me. It's helped me deal with things a little bit better. It's helped me nurture relationships with people who maybe on other occasions I'd be like, okay, you get out of my life, like you're cut off, done. I'll never speak to you again. I've done that to a lot of people in my world, and I really try not to do that anymore because what it does is that probably says more about me than it says about them or their relationship towards me, because I was always so willing to just, that's it, you've upset me and it's done. But that doesn't work because I'm not being true to myself at that point. That's an opportunity for me to have a hard conversation. And normally when I have tough conversations with people, I preface it by saying, we're about to have a really difficult conversation right now. So I want you to prepare yourself for it. And I'm prepared for it as well. And it just seems to change the landscape, and we can have difficult conversations. And what's the goal of every relationship is that when you have a tough conversation, on the other side of it, you should be open to a closer bond than you did prior, right? That's what relationships are. Nadia, I know you're married, and I'm sure that you've had some very difficult conversations with Scott. And I'm sure on the other side of it, you're like, thank God I had that conversation because I feel so much closer to you now. That's the goal, right? That's the goal. That's a life that's honest to yourself, and it's honest for the person that you're with. And if it's not good enough for them, you still are cleansed on your interior, right? Your interior is cleansed so that you're free to find that it's no longer about me, right? It's no longer about me. That if this is your reaction, I've spoken my truth. There's nothing else we can do.
It's beautiful. And Sam, I have a feeling you might be thinking something similar, but it's very Gate 59 in human design, which is all about intimacy. And for those listening, human design doesn't say, okay, Scott, you're going to be on this TV show, you're going to write this book, you're going to have this family. It's more about spelling out the themes of experience that your soul will have very concentrated in this lifetime. And a big one of yours is intimacy, and learning that intimacy grows through conflict and hard conversations is such a big part of it. And I'm very much marveling at the spiritual tenet of how you shifted your relationships through spirituality, which is before you're annoying me, like you're doing something that's pissing me off, and it evolving to you're showing up in my life for a reason. There's something here. This is a mirror for me. I'm going to look at myself and I'm going to use this as an opportunity for greater
Yeah.
closeness.
Yeah. I isn't that the goal, right? There's always an opportunity for better. Now, whether or not we seize it is completely up to us. But I don't believe in this in a victim's. I mean, I've had a lot of bad things happen to me in my career. I really have, and we don't have to get into it. But I've had all kinds of losses. I've had all kinds of gains. I've had a lot of positives, but I've had a lot of negatives, and I've had a lot of negatives while the positives are going on, right? But I really truly believe it's your attitude towards it. It really is. I tell my daughters this all the time. You are not going to be able to control, particularly teenage. I mean, I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old. So my 11-year-old is going on 40, and my 15-year-old and my 14-year-old is she's going on 35. I mean, they're advanced kids, and I am blessed to be their father. I mean, if I talk about it, I'll get emotional. I love them more than anything I've ever experienced. And I know that neither one of you are moms, but I will tell you this, and anyone who's a parent, if they're a good parent and they're open parents, they will tell you the same thing, that life does not prepare you for the amount of love that you will receive when you have a child. Just life doesn't prepare you for it. There's nothing I've ever experienced that's like that. When I held my first daughter for the first time, I was just speechless. I just couldn't believe that I'm holding this child. Like, this is insane. And I was really scared when my second daughter was born, because I was like, I love Isla so much. Am I going to have enough love for Katia? And the interesting thing is that I realized in that moment, holding Katia when she was, fresh out of the womb, right? Just, the first person to touch her besides the doctor. And I remember thinking to myself that hatred, it's finite. It at a certain point, hatred has to end, because you'll kill yourself. Like, it will affect everything in your world. But love it goes on forever. There's no end to love. And I found that to be incredible. And that is a well that I have gone back to countless times in my life since they've been around. And I've been able to draw off of it and make my life better because of it. As a new father, you walk in the house and the kids are toddlers and they give you a hug. There were days that I needed those hugs more than they did. I could tell you that much. And it's made my life richer, fulfilled.
It's so powerful. Tears are in my eyes, Sam. I feel like you're getting emotional too. This is like, it's so profound hearing you describe it, Scott. And
Yeah.
I feel like maybe with your second, is what you're saying that your heart expanded, like it was a limit, it wasn't a finite thing.
It wasn't finite. And I realized it was with Isla. It was fine. It was not finite, right? It went on forever. I didn't realize that you can love something else equally as much. I mean, that was the incredible takeaway for me. And it continues to be the incredible takeaway. Yesterday, I try to do these dad things. I don't have a lot of time. And also it's always something, but I took her to a volleyball private yesterday, and I was just sitting, watching through a window, watching my 11-year-old Katia play volleyball with the coach. And, just kind of, the coach was really tough on her, and she was getting mad at herself. And she's a manifesting generator as well. She's a Virgo. And if you know anything about, she's a double dragon in Chinese and Eastern astrology. And so she's tough. Like she's like really, really tough, really tough. She's hard-headed and I'm always trying to work on her with it and stuff. But she was really like upset with herself, but still pushing herself. And I remember I was just looking at her yesterday with this incredible pride of just like, look at this kid. Like she's still going. She's 11 years old, and look at her pushing herself. And she made a mistake, do 5 burpees, and she's like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna pass out." And I'm just, those are things that I try to take those little snippets in life, and I think it's a hint from the universe. I really take those as hints and like just be present, put your phone down, and just watch her. And I was just beaming with appreciation and gratitude at that point as I was looking at who she is. And I just, I think all too often as a parent, you think you own your kid. Like, and I tell them all the time, like, you're my kid. I don't own you, right? You're here to walk your own path. And I want to prepare you accordingly. Like, I want you to be your best self. Like, how do we do that together?
You're describing this. This is awesome to be on the receiving end. I feel like I'm looking at like the sun, except it's just like love, and it's just like I'm just like lapping it up. And you're describing this immense amount of gratitude, the way that you reflect on your life. And I knew it was going to be like this before we even started talking, because you have such an immense amount of light that shows through your face and your eyes. And only people who live in a great sense of gratitude and love have that. So I suspected that might come through, and it's come through even stronger than I could have anticipated.
Appreciate
And I
that.
wanted
Thank
to
you.
ask you about like how you cultivate it, but you've already shared the answer to me, I think, which is that you find the moments of deep gratitude and you notice them, you take them in. And as you described, like it's this well that you can go reach to. It's this, you have all these sources of like eternal love. You have your daughters, you have all these aspects of your life,
Mm.
and it's just going back to the well. So when you're really busy, you have a lot of demands on you, and I don't know, but I would imagine that there's an energetic demand of being in a public space, like being in the public eye, and having a job where lots of people have their energy on
Yeah.
you. How do you, what's the process of being like, I'm really busy, I'm stretched, and I go back to this well of love?
First of all, when it comes to the public persona thing, somebody said to me the other day, which I really loved. She said, if you close your eyes, do you even have a body? And I really thought about that. The only reason why we know that we have a body is because we see it. And if we don't see these things, is that kind of ignorance bliss? And I don't think of myself as a public figure. I think I'm a cook. That's how I started. I was a dishwasher. Like I'm no more special than anyone else, right? Like if I can teach someone something about working hard and staying the path, and Nadia, you said to me earlier that you always have 1,000 things going on. Like I do. I have 1,000 things going on. I get phone calls every day for other things. I know a lot of people in my position that doesn't happen to. So I take that as a blessing. I think it's also extremely exhausting at times. There's days where I'm just like, I can't do it. My meditation is important to me, but also, jumping in a pool and swimming for 1.5 miles is really important to me too. And I don't always have the time to do that. But I don't think about being a public figure. I don't think about that as that's a byproduct, right? Money is a byproduct of work done well. Popularity is a byproduct of work done well if you're doing it the right way. I think that's my mantra. I don't do what I do because I want to be a billionaire. I would have to do something else, because you're not going to do it in the restaurant world. Not these days, God knows. But I live a great life, and I'm blessed to be able to. And I look at other people in my situation, that may have more than me or may have less than me. And I see their unhappiness. I think that unhappiness stems from an expectation that's sometimes unrealistic. And I don't have those expectations. I want more. I build things. I love doing the things I love to do. And I'm blessed that I'm able to do them. And I also have a very high opinion of myself. That doesn't mean I'm egotistical. It means I expect a lot of me. I think I'm here for it. I'm here for the responsibility that goes along with it as well.
Yeah.
But I think that if I had a different mindset on it all, I would never be able to achieve the things, and I don't think I would be given the things that I'm given, or the opportunities in front of me. I feel blessed for that.
There's a channel. Go ahead, Nadia.
No, I think you're going to say exactly what I was going to say. So I love that you're taking it away, Sam.
Okay, so there's a channel in your human design. It connects your root to your intuition center. It's called the channel of transformation, and Nadia actually has it too. And this is this energy about it's the drive to just bulldoze through barriers and the drive to find great material success. But it's as you bulldoze and as you drive and as you push through things, you actually transcend the material to the spiritual. And so it's this recognition of material success is important, but deep fulfillment comes through spiritual openness. And part of the gift of the spiritual is a deep intuition. You have a very active intuition center, your splenic center, and this one is a awareness of who and what can be successful, what ideas can be successful, intuitive knowing, what people can be successful. I put this person in this role and it can really take off versus this person in this role won't. What businesses could be successful, and it's not rational. It's not necessarily logic based. It's a deep knowing. Nadia, do you want to add to that since you have that channel?
I'm just curious if that lands for you, Scott.
It does. I really feel like it's something I need to hone, I would say. But it's all these things that you're saying are it's interesting because I think until I started to do the internal work, it wasn't, it was strictly, any success that I had identified until that point 20 years ago was strictly because I was head down working towards it, like nonstop, relentless. And relationships took a toll. Family life took a toll. Every girlfriend I ever had ended up really upset with me because they weren't my focus. My work was my focus. And that's, until I met my wife, I would work 7 days a week if I could. That was just, I'm working on something here. And I would, that was my line to every girlfriend that was in the process of breaking up. Like, I'm working on something here. I don't know what to tell you. It sounds callous and it sounds cruel, but I mean, what you're saying is this is my focus. This is my being. And that's all the way I was. I couldn't read into it the way I can now. I think this getting to know myself is the way I always describe it to people. Like, now that I know myself, that's what really resonates with me most, is that I've gotten to know myself really well over the years.
You have all this energy in your chart about, in addition to that drive, and about perseverance and being able to stay with things and needing to lose yourself in your work and fully devote and commit to it. And you have a ton of energy behind this. So your energetic makeup was just so well suited for a job in which you would have to just put your head down and grit. But the piece that gives you the ultimate fulfillment is the deep connection with yourself, is a vision towards love. It's the spirit and the fullness of life. And so why you could find a lot of success and probably a lot of fulfillment through the head down, it was never going to feel complete without this extra piece.
That hits hard. That really hits hard, because I remember the first time my goal was to get 3 stars in the New York Times. I was a young chef and that was in my head, and that's what I was going to do. I was 32 years old when I got 3 stars in the New York Times. And I remember that moment of, really being emotional. I think it lasted about 3 minutes. And then I looked up and I was like, all right, what's next? Like now,
Wow.
you know, what's next? That's, I mean, that's a literal, real life experience that it just, you know, this idea of that's not going to fulfill me, you know, that dream. And that was 21 years ago. So, you know, I'm still trying to identify that fulfillment. It's not going to come from an exterior. It just doesn't come from the outside. And you know, we all hear people talk about that all the time. And you know, I am not, I make a good living, but I am not, you know, like Jim Carrey rich. When you hear about the money that Jim Carrey makes, and Jim Carrey talks about, you know, this exactly the things that we're talking about, right? And he's like, I wish everybody can experience being rich and understanding that that's not what it's about. I'm not rich, but I know that that's not what it's about, right? Like I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy sitting on, you know, 100, $200 million in the bank and just saying, no, you guys don't understand. I'm rich. It's not what it's about. I'm not rich, but I know that that's not what it's about. Yeah.
So what is it about? I think that's a big question, but
I think it is a big question. I think it's about something different for everyone. But for me, I think it's just about identifying that fulfillment. And, you know, my kids fulfill me, and you know, there's aspects of my personal life that really fulfill me. And there's my work that's fulfilling, and my interaction with people that grow and expand. I feel like a big part of me is a teacher or a coach at this point in my career, that I'm trying to, you know, like, let's go, you know, let's be amazing. You know, let's come up with great ideas. Let's do great stuff. Let's have fun while we're doing it. Let's not take ourselves too seriously. You know, here's an idea. I'm starting a, you know, I've gotten a lot of press over the years for my tomato sauce and this spaghetti with tomato basil that I've cooked for a very long time. And I have variations of the recipes that I've done. And I've decided to start a food company with food products. And I'm calling it Martone Street, because Martone Street is where my grandfather built a home when he moved from Italy to the United States. And that again is that personal connection. That's where we would have those Sunday dinners, those, you know, picturesque Sunday dinners of everybody sitting around a table and eating and enjoying and connecting and convivial and, you know, chinking the glasses. And it's all this amazing connection. That's what it is. So, you know, why not build a company that can sell these food products, starting with tomato sauce and other food products that we can grow and expand, and help people create that same connectivity at home, right? I mean, we all have our version of that dinner, right? And so for me, it's like, where's your Martone Street? Like, where's the place that you identified that connection with, you know, food is life, wine is life. All those things are just fulfilling in different ways. And it's connection with a glass of wine, or connection with, I don't drink anymore, but, you know, connection with food and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I mean, those are the things that really excite me. Like, I had an astrologer one time tell me, you know, if you weren't a chef, I would say, if you came to me and, you know, before college or in high school, whatever, I would say you should go into marketing. That's what I think you should go. He's like, but look at your life. Like, look at your life. You are marketing yourself ultimately. You
totally.
know?
Sam
Yeah.
and I just pointed at each other of knowing this, because you have the channel of the marketer. That's a big part of your chart. So it makes so much sense.
So funny.
But I also wanted to say that you have the second most prominent aspect beyond the like connection, the spirit, the like intimacy with life and with others, is this ability to really be charismatic and to go after things and to inspire others to go after them, to yourself go after them. But the shadow side, or sometimes the perhaps some of the younger years, is not knowing how to say no, like saying yes to things, not knowing how to set boundaries, staying really
Yeah.
busy, which is always going to be healthy for you. But sometimes looking back and being like, did I really want to be doing that? Was that really the highest
Yeah.
use of my time? And I'm curious if Martone Street feels like this kind of arc of like, finally, I'm doing things that feel truly right.
I think it's a piece of the whole. I don't think it's everything, because I'm doing so many other things. You
Of
know,
course.
I have restaurants that I'm doing, high-end restaurants, quick serve restaurants and mid-tier restaurants, and I I love to travel, and I'm doing that. And saying no is always an issue for me because I have this almost inherent guilt that I, you know, it's just hard for me to say no. So what I've done is I try to get my team involved. I have these two wonderful women who've worked with me for a number of years, both Irene and Maria, and I'll send them emails and I'll be like, don't let me respond to this because I'm going to get myself in trouble, and they'll be like, we'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. Like we got, we got it. Thank God for Irene and Maria because they've gotten me out of a lot of a lot of situations that I put myself in over time. That totally resonates. It's something that I've worked on, but I have this crazy guilt attached to it when I have to say no, particularly to friends. They have a food and wine festival in this place or that place, and I spend so much time on a plane and traveling in different places that I'm already making excuses for why I have to say no instead of just saying no. See, look at that, on brand.
Totally. Yeah, I think that it's a tricky thing, but having kind of the overarching understanding of the why and the sort of like what are the pillars of things that actually feel deeply fulfilling so that you have an understanding when something lands on your plate, which you're going to continue to be in flow, having so many opportunities, different phone calls, people will be drawn to you. You're an MG. Your energy is naturally magnetic and you're very charismatic. So having that kind of overarching understanding of the deeper spiritual yes,
Mm.
I think can be so helpful.
Yeah,
So I
thank you
I
for
have
that.
I have a question, and it's not quite exactly what we're talking about, but it's a question I would personally just like to know. So I'm going to put it out there, and that is so for a little context, I think Nadia and I both have a very strong and rich relationship with food in our personal lives. Both feel very like really really prioritize where ingredients are sourced. I the Someone asked me recently, like, so like where do you like hang out in Austin? And my first answer was like our local butcher. It was just like the first thing that came to mind. Salt and Thyme. And I used to do, when I was an advisor at Tulane, work with urban farmers, and I've always felt really passionate about local food systems. And it's always been like a personal dream to like be more connected to chefs, and so it's really exciting to
Yeah,
speak with you. Something I've noticed personally is as I progress in my spiritual connection and relationship, my relationship with certain types of foods change, and the importance of nourishing myself.
yeah,
So I think like you, like I don't drink alcohol anymore. My tolerance for certain foods has shifted a lot. Certain foods will feel challenging for me. Like I can't eat a ton of meat anymore, which is anybody 5 years ago would be like shocked. I ate so much, or especially like 10 years ago, I ate so much meat. And now it like overwhelms my system. And so I'm
mm,
curious, not everybody has that experience, but I'm curious if you've ever navigated anything like that, and how like your relationship with nourishing the body, a big part of your chart also has this like deeply caring for your body, and how you navigate it like as your profession being in the food space.
yeah. It's always a challenge because I'm a fat kid at heart.
Mm.
I love food. I love food. So surrounding myself with great food all the time is I wouldn't call it a challenge, but there's an appreciation for it that I make this polenta that for me is just really special. I make it, but it's half milk, half cream. We cook the polenta for about 3 hours. I finish it with butter and Parmesan cheese, and it is naughty. It's naughty. It's just naughty. And when I'm around it, I can't help myself. I gotta grab a piece of bread and like, sop it up. And that's just one of those things. But I mean, my corporate chef Dan, who's a great friend and also a business partner of mine, um, he'll always say, like, I know you're stressed when you go for the bread with the polenta because that's just not something that I do that often anymore. But when he sees me do it, and that's a challenge because I'll just looking at that pot of polenta, I'll put 5 pounds on. I cannot eat that way anymore. So I'll do this quarterly cleanse at this point where I'll do the master cleanse for 3 or 4 days. And last time I did it for 12 days and I lost almost 30 pounds in 12 days just because I need to shed that. Like exactly what you're saying. it's I don't think I'm the fat guy, but my inner fat kid is loving the food that's in front of it, and that's part of why I do what I do, because I love that. I just did some videos for the Food Network. And they'll be released soon, but I was cooking some stuff, and at one point I was making a roasted chicken, just a simple roasted chicken, my style, seared, pan down, cooked in the oven about a really high temperature, about 500 degrees. So the skin is super crispy. We cook it all the way one side, about 85% of the way, flip it over, and then I glaze it with this deep, beautiful, rich beef glace over the top of it. And it's sticky and crunchy, and it's moist from the cooking the chicken this way. And I was like so excited sharing this with people, and I was just so happy. I couldn't contain my joy cooking this, and this is just for a video, like nobody's really tasting this except for me. But I was like, oh my God, I can't wait for you guys to taste this, because it is so fantastic. And there was some people around, and they tasted it, and I was happy that they expressed joy as well when they were eating it. It was equally as joyous for them as it was for me, which is kind of the whole point of being a chef. But that's it. That's why I do what I do, and I think if we can continually do that, no matter what it is, like what brings you that joy, do it. That's what you should do. What did Joseph Campbell say? Pursue your bliss. Like that. He said it for a reason. He was a smart guy, Joseph Campbell. Like, I listen to that. I take it I take it to heart. I'm just going to do that. That's what I'm going to do.
It's very MG of you. I'm looking at Sam because we're both just smiling. Like everything that you're saying, Scott, is very embodied of your human design chart, your energy. I just have to say also that you're born very close to when Steve Jobs was born. You share the same life path, the same top gift in human design. And I feel the same sort of passion, but also that sternness of there has to be this sort of discernment and rigor also. But like when you talk about this chicken, my stomach started growling. I'm like, I want the chicken. So maybe
good.
when it's out, we'll put the link to the video in the show notes. I feel like everyone's like, we need the chicken.
It's a good chicken. I wish I could cook it for you right now. Next time we do one of these, I'll be cooking at the same time, and I'll feed you. We should do it in person.
I would love to shift us a little bit. You started talking about your daughters, and it just filled, I think, both Sam and I's hearts. We're just like, oh my. I'd love to talk about human design and parenting a little bit, and just the fact that you've looked up your daughter's charts. And I'm curious if it just reinforces this already belief that you don't own your children. Like if it kind of like shows you a little bit more like they're so different from you and similar.
I want to remember what Isla is, and she's either a reflector or a projector. It's one or the other. And she, I don't have my phone here. I don't have my phone in front of you.
Sam's gonna pull it up.
Okay, great. Do you need her date, her time, and all that kind of stuff? Oh, you have it saved. You're good. You're good. You're good. You're good. So, it taught me a lot it made me understand her better, because I would get so frustrated because I don't lay in bed all day and look at my phone and just kind of relax or sleep all the time. And I'm like, let's go, let's get out of bed. Let's do something. And she plays volleyball, and she's really good at it. And she's 14 years old. And I'm never going to say, the things that a 14-year-old are passionate about. I was there. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to support, and all that I think is really important. It creates a healthy environment to support your kids, right? But also keep them, my job is to be the guardrails, and sometimes you don't want the guardrails. You want to be free and easy, but this conversation, just like that, is the conversation I have with Isla, and Katia. I have the honest conversation. But when I found out she is, what is she?
She's a projector.
She's a projector.
A splenic projector.
So when I found out that she's a projector, I was like, well, that's it. That's who she is. She's got to sit around and look at her phone. And when it's time for her to get up and show up, she does an incredible job of. I remember when she was like maybe 4 years old, we were walking down the street together and we passed some people getting on a bus. And I didn't think twice about it. I just was walking and we walked. I mean, it was maybe 3 seconds because they were behind they were behind something and we walked past them, saw them. And Isla was like, "Did you see that woman's boots? I love those boots." And her dress was fantastic. I really liked the way she did her hair. And it was really, she went on and on. And it's like she saw this woman and she took it all in. And I really said to myself, like, this kid is like pretty incredible that she's on it. But her observations that I've noticed as she's gotten older it's really impressive that she observes so much. And then when she's asked to provide some kind of leadership or some kind of help or something, she shows up in a way that is powerful. And I remember I listened to that podcast that you did twice, about you said projector, right? I always get them all confused. So,
Yeah,
because it really it's Isla. That's who she is. That's who she is. Yeah.
Nadia, just for your context, she's a 1-3 Spunic projector, born under gate 49, 49 4, 43 23, channel of structuring, channel of judgment, channel of prodigal.
Amazing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, Scott, the way that you talk about her and just that understanding and recognition of she's not going to do everything, she's going to do certain things really, really well, and leaning into those qualities and showing up for her in volleyball or the leadership aspects. It's so heartwarming. And human design is so meant for parents to be like, okay, there's this entity, this being so separate from me, but of me. How do I support? But you do have this shared commonality that you both are 1-3s. That means that you both are here to investigate and research and get really deep in your lane of curiosity. And you're here to
Mm.
try things out and just get your hands dirty a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
curious if that resonates for you.
It totally does. I mean, she has a lot of things, particularly when she was younger. She had so many different interests. I mean, it was really, she still says like, I want to live here for a year. I want to go there and live there for a year. I want to go to, my wife is Turkish. I want to go to Turkey and live there for a year. We're going to Bali in a couple of weeks. Singapore and Bali is a family vacation. A good friend of ours is having a birthday party in Bali, and so we're just taking a trip to Bali. And she's just like, I want to go there. This is what I want to experience. I want to go to Singapore. I want to eat the food. I want to do this, that, and the other thing. She's she wants to live in these places. It's I love that. I love that. I love that she wants to experience life. That's the thing that I think. I'll give you an example. We were driving together a couple weeks ago, and she was complaining about something on her team. Somebody did something was up, like something was going on. And then she stopped herself and she said, "But you know what, Dad? It doesn't matter because everything works out for me." I was
Oh my God.
I was what 14-year-old has that kind of insight on life? I mean, I was like, I had to get it together. I was so choked up. And I said, Isla, that is true. And if you thought the opposite, then that would be true too. Just keep that mindset the way you have it, because what you believe is your reality. I believe that. And so I just feel so incredibly blessed to be her dad.
That is so profound.
Yeah.
Scott, would you be comfortable if I share a few insights from her chart that I see?
Please, please, please.
So
Yeah.
it's called the channel of judgment, and it's all about this pressure to experience deep vibrancy, this joy, love, and joyous vibrancy of life, and this discernment of how to make things better and how to correct things and how to
Mm.
improve things. She has this incredible gift of unique insight, of seeing the world in a very unique way and being able to articulate those insights in a way that maybe you've never anyone's ever heard say before, that really empowers people's individual thinking. And like you, she has this really this spirit and this like desire to experience the whole, like the fullness of what life's to offer, but also Gate 30, which is all about like a variety of experiences. Like I want to taste everything that life can give me, and in
Yeah.
doing so it'll bring her
Yeah.
closer to her own sense of presence.
That's my girl.
Really, really cool.
It's
Amazing.
really, it's great. It's great. I mean, I think that, I'm old, but I'm not that old. And to be able to experience life almost a second time through their eyes is just so, it's just so enriching. It really is. It's nothing that I've ever thought about. I didn't grow up in a way where um, my parents empowered me. It was almost, I'm of a different generation where my parents were kind of like, my father would say this to us, children should be seen and not heard. And my kids have a seat at the table and they know how to act when adults are around. You know what I mean? That they can't, if they're going to act like children, they'll be asked to, don't don't take random pictures and you're on your Snapchat and all that kind of stuff. Like if you're going to do that, that's fine. Kids do it. Like go to your room, but don't sit with a bunch of adults and do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like I want that. When she was little, I would never speak to her like she was a baby. I've always spoken to her like she was like she was an adult. I want her to be able to have these conversations, and I'll take business calls with her in the car, and she's experienced my professionalism, and she's also experienced me being upset. She's also experienced, and Katia is the same, where, I've gotten bad news. We shot a pilot and we didn't get picked up on it. And I took the call, and it was a really, really, really well-known guy on the other end of the phone call. And I was like, don't say anything. I got to take this call. And I got some bad news. And I wanted her to see me react to it, because she knew how important that show was to me. And it would have changed our lives, right? But we didn't we didn't get picked up. But I didn't wallow in it. I didn't feel bad for myself. I was like, there's something better for us out there. And and I want them to experience that with me, if that makes sense.
Life always works out for me. And you
Life always works
reacting in
out
that
for me.
taught her that of course
Yeah.
that's true, because it always works out for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's easier
I think
said
that's
than
important.
done. Yeah. It's easier,
Well,
to say it, but then when you're going
yeah,
through it
yeah,
and you
yeah.
modeled it.
It's hard. It's hard. But you know what? It's like integrity, right? Integrity is sometimes a really difficult thing to uphold, but it's the right thing to do. Nobody has to tell you that. You should know that inherently. You know, that's doing the right thing. Just let's be better.
Yeah. Well, Scott, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to listen to this conversation several times because I was like, my heart was expanded and I felt these waves of emotions. You are such a Pisces. It's amazing. We'd like to wind this down with just some quick hit questions.
Yeah,
And we actually
sure.
haven't prepared them. So we're just going to kind of riff. And my first question for you is a spiritual book or any sort of book that is something that really impacted the way that you see the world.
Oh my goodness, there's so many. I could bring it to my bookshelf and see it, but I think that there's so many lessons in life that I've gotten from books, and you know, the things that have impacted me on a spiritual or on a deep level aren't necessarily written for the spirit. Um, the Fountainhead changed my life by Ayn Rand, and I think that that's these days in particular, that's putting a stake in the ground, and that's controversial. I don't mean it to be controversial. I think that anything that you read, you need to discern. And there's things that resonate and there's things that don't. And I think that you leave the stuff that doesn't work for you and you take the stuff that does. And I think that's part of being an adult. You don't have to agree with everything that everyone says. Some of the stuff in Ayn Rand's book I do not agree with, but there's a lot of stuff in Atlas Shrugged as well. Those two books changed my life. Changed my life.
Okay, what is I call it a bad girl snack, to use your word earlier, naughty. What are one of your favorite bad girl foods?
You know, I can't keep things like chips in the house and stuff because I'll eat them and that's just bad. But even like cashews or pistachios and stuff like that, I just can't keep it around. It's just not. It's just if it's there, I'll eat it. And so I try to like walk a good path when it comes to these things. I spend a lot of time on TV, and that I'm looking at myself as I'm talking to you, and I'm like, oh my God, it's time for the cleanse. I got so espresso, and that's kind of you. Thank you. I was kind of looking for that, wasn't I? That was pathetic. But I think that me and espresso, I just can't do it like I used to. I used to drink 16 espressos a day.
Oh my God.
I would just be, because I'm in a restaurant, take a coffee, just, it's like, let's talk about something. Let's go have a coffee and talk about it at the espresso machine. That was just, that was par for the course. I worked with Italians my entire career. That's like a culture. It's a cultural thing, for Italians. So, they're habits that I just can't have. But the top thing that I cannot have around me would be Skippy extra chunky peanut butter.
Let's go.
I will. Some of the other chefs on Chopped make fun of me, Amanda and Alex in particular, because I will sit there with a jar and a spoon and just eat it, or a butter knife and just eat. And I'll eat 3/4 of a jar and then realize, oh my God, I just ate 3/4 of it, and I'll feel sick and I'll be disgusted with myself. Everything. I mean, I don't even keep it in the house because my wife and kids are like, oh boy, here he goes with the peanut butter.
That's so
bad
fun.
news.
Nadia,
Sorry, such a long answer. I apologize.
No, that's great.
That's great.
My probably favorite bad girl food is a fried chicken sandwich drenched in really good ranch. Nadia, what's one of yours?
I mean, it's not even bad girl, but I really love pizza with crust dipped in Caesar dressing, but it has to be like the full send with the anchovies, Worcestershire situation.
Interesting. Nice.
I've been really into these sriracha rice crisps. It's Dang is the brand.
That sounds good.
They're really good.
That sounds delicious. I love fried chicken. Like that's that. I'm right there with you, Sam. That you give me a piece of fried chicken and I am just fat and happy. Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
Happy. It's so delicious.
Good stuff.
Any last questions, Sam?
What's your favorite? Is there anyone you'd really love to see in concert, whether they are touring or not?
Well, I am a huge Willie Nelson fan. I grew up, and you're in Austin, so I mean, I know you can appreciate this. I grew up, my father would listen to Willie Nelson all the time. Waylon and Willie and Johnny Cash, Chris Christopherson and Merle Haggard and all that old country. I'm like I love that stuff. I love it. That's my, and then you give me like old R&B, like Otis Redding and and James Brown and Heat Wave and all those, like I love that stuff. That old R&B is what I will put on when I'm working, and I like that's my comfort. But seeing in concert, I've been fortunate to cook for Willie Nelson, meet him a few times. And his wife is just such a sweetheart, Annie, and I've been blessed to get to know her over the years. And Willie is just always my favorite. And old Dylan, I love Bob Dylan also. There's just I think I want to be a hippie when I grow up, but I'm too materialistic right now. So maybe later down the road, I just want to be an old hippie. I think that Willie Nelson's life on the road is just so. There's just something really beautiful about that just doing what he loves and traveling from place to place in order to do it, and his perspective on life is, he has 3 rules in his house that Annie told me. And I saw them tweet about this the other day, so it's not like it's anything, you know, out of sorts. I'm not sharing anything that I shouldn't. 3 rules. Number 1 was don't be an asshole. Number 2 was don't be an asshole. And number 3 was don't be a fucking asshole. And I really love those rules. You know, I think those are great rules for life. Just don't be an asshole. Simple as that. Yeah.
Great rule.
I think that's a great note to end on. Don't be an asshole. The greatest spiritual tenet. Thank you, Willie Nelson. Also,
Thank you,
Scott, I could
Willie.
just hear you talk about things that you're passionate about
Me
for
too.
hours and hours. I feel lit up. I'm ready to go do a bunch of stuff. I'm a projector too. I can get sleepy, but I'm energized.
Yes.
So thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity. It's so wonderful meeting you both. I'm such a big fan of what you guys do. And I'm flattered that you would take the time to talk to me. Truly. Thank you. And thank you for letting me just babble on and on.
Oh, this was amazing.
Really
Truly.
appreciate
I
you.
loved this so much. Thank you. And thank you for listening to us and for seeing what we're up to and for sharing your time with us. And I felt such a personal, like I felt so personally moved and touched and expanded. I'm really, really, really looking forward to re-listening this and writing it down and then like having some discussions, almost like book clubbing our own episode with Nadia. Because there was a lot of wisdom that you dropped on there, like even one-liners that I'm like, this is something for me to contemplate. And so I'm grateful for this opportunity to be expanded and for your time. And this was so fun. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. It really is my pleasure. Thank you both, honestly. And you know, I just, you know, I always feel like, oh my God, I've talked about myself so much. And I just wanted to listen to you guys because I listen to you all the time. And I really do appreciate the work that you're doing. And you're bringing light in information to people that, you know, there's not a lot out there about it. There's a lot of podcasts, but I really love, you know, your connective. Lost my earbud. But I love your connection and the way you speak about it, and I've learned so much listening to the two of you. So thank you,
Thank you,
truly,
Scott.
great stuff.